Welcome back to the hour where sleep should take you, but doesn't. Tonight, I invite you to light a candle, lock the doors, and listen closely. Because what we're about to explore is not a story. It's a ritual. One with rules. One with risks. One whispered between thrill seekers and paranormal addicts under the hush of midnight. It's called the Midnight Game. A dare. A test, a punishment cloaked in curiosity. Some say it's just a creepypasta, a piece of internet fiction. Others swear by what they've seen, what they've felt, what followed them even after the game ended. If you've never heard of it, consider this your warning. And if you've ever played it, you already know midnight is never truly over. Let's begin. If you're hearing this, it means you're already too close. You've seen the name whispered in corners of the internet, written in broken form threads, or buried in the comment section of a video that no longer exists. The Midnight Game. It's not just a tale, not a ghost story, not something you laugh off at a sleepover. It is a ritual, a test, a dare issued by something older than myth and more cruel than reason. According to legend, the ritual originated in ancient pagan societies, not as a form of entertainment, but as punishment. Those who broke sacred oaths were forced to face the Midnight Man, a shadowy entity summoned through blood and intent. Survivors were marked forever. Those who failed were never seen again. Now, centuries later, the ritual has found new life in the age of the internet. Passed like a virus between thrill seekers and skeptics. You'll find the rules scrawled on old blogs, cursed TikToks, deep dive YouTube videos, each version almost identical, as if the instructions haven't changed in hundreds of years. But the true horror, it doesn't matter whether you believe in it. The Midnight Man does. The game begins at 12 a.m. sharp. And from the moment you strike the final match, you are no longer the hunter. You are prey. For the next 3 hours and 33 minutes, you are not alone. The lights must stay off. The candles must stay lit. The salt circle is your only sanctuary. If the flame goes out, if you feel a cold breath behind you, if you hear scratching at the walls when no one is there, you've already lost. Some say it's just a psychological experiment, a self-induced panic attack. But those who've truly played, those whose stories are buried deeper, they speak of something else. A presence, a hunger, something that learns your fears and use them to break you piece by piece. And if you survive, you never forget the feeling of being hunted. The darkness never feels quite empty again. So the question isn't, do you believe in the Midnight Game? It's, are you ready to be believed in by something else? Let's talk about the rules. Because with the Midnight Game, they aren't just suggestions. They're lifelines. You follow them or you disappear. No second chances. No mercy. The Midnight Game isn't your average sleepover scare. This isn't Bloody Mary. This isn't Candyman. This is a ritual, a calling, a test. The origin of the game is murky. Some say it was once used by ancient pagan cults to punish those who broke their sacred laws. Others claim it was a form of psychological torture designed to force confession through raw fear. But what's terrifying is that nobody knows who brought it back. One day, it just started appearing on the internet, whispered about in obscure forums, posted in corners of Reddit and YouTube, dared between teenagers who should have known better. But if you're going to try it, you'd better know what you're doing. The setup. Here's what you'll need: a candle, a piece of paper, a pen, a needle or pin, a lighter or match, salt, a wooden door inside your home. You start by writing your full name on the piece of paper. Not a nickname, not initials. Your full legal name, as if you're signing a contract. And in a way, you are. Then, using the needle or pin, draw a drop of blood and let it fall onto the paper. This seals the invitation. Place the paper in front of the wooden door. Turn off every single light in the house. Complete darkness. Then take your candle, light it, and place it beside the paper. Now comes the moment that matters most. Knock on the door 22 times. Not 20, not 23. 22 times. And that final knock, it must land exactly on the stroke of midnight. No earlier, no later. Then, open the door. Blow out the candle. And that's it. You've just let him in. Once the door is closed, immediately relight your candle. From that moment on, you must wander the house. You cannot stop moving. You cannot sit down. You cannot hide. You must walk and keep walking until 3:33 a.m. That's the finish line. That's when the game ends. If you make it that far, you survive. But if your candle flickers or goes out, that's your warning. He's close. You now have exactly 10 seconds to relight your candle. If you manage to, you can keep playing. But if you fail, then he's there, watching you. And what happens next is different for everyone. Some say they experience hallucinations, grotesque visions, whispers behind their ears, shadows that shouldn't exist. Others report overwhelming dread, the sensation of being touched by something freezing cold, or hearing the sound of their name being whispered from inside the walls. Some have blacked out completely, only to wake up hours later with bruises and scratches they can't explain. And a few, they just don't talk about what they saw. Ever. The forbidden acts. There are rules to keep you alive. Break them, and the game changes. Don't turn on any lights. Don't fall asleep. Don't stop moving. Don't use flashlights or electronic devices. Don't leave your house. Don't provoke him. And most importantly, do not try to end the game early. Once it begins, it must run its course. Some claim salt can be used as a last resort. If your candle won't relight, and you feel him closing in, you can draw a circle of salt and step inside. If the circle is unbroken, you're safe, but only until 3:33. After that, it's over. Assuming you make it that far, this is not a game of winning. It's a game of surviving. It's a test, not of bravery, but of obedience. And if you fail to follow the rules, he finds you. Now for some real-life accounts. The following stories have been pieced together from scattered internet archives, old paranormal forums, and first-hand confessions. Whether these tales are true or not, they all share one terrifying trait. Once you play the midnight game, something changes, and it never changes back. Account 1, the footsteps above. It was late October when Mason, a 22-year-old college student in Oregon, decided to try the midnight game. He'd read about it online, laughed at how over the top the warnings were. But deep down, he was curious, maybe even a little arrogant. He played alone inside his grandparents' old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. No power, just him, a candle, and a circle of salt he'd readied in advance. Just in case. The house creaked with age, and the wind outside seemed to test the rotting wood frame. Still, he began the ritual. He knocked on the door 22 times, completed the steps, and blew out the candle at midnight. At first, nothing happened. He walked slowly through the halls, candle burning gently. The silence was heavy, not peaceful, just empty, like the house had stopped breathing. 30 minutes in, he noticed it, a faint smell. At first, it was just a hint. Something burnt, maybe old dust on the heater. Then it got stronger, acrid, bitter. It filled his lungs. Smoke, but there was no fire. The candle flickered erratically, then died. Panic set in. He dropped to his knees, scrambling to relight it. The lighter clicked. Once. Twice. No flame. His hands shook as he remembered the rule. Relight it within 10 seconds, or surround yourself with salt. The flame finally sparked. On the 7th try, and just as it caught, he heard footsteps. Upstairs. Heavy. Running. Except Mason was alone. And the upstairs floor had long since collapsed years ago. He froze. The footsteps got louder, faster, slamming against the floorboards above as if someone or something was sprinting back and forth just over his head. Then silence. Then the stairs creaked. He backed into a corner, clutching the candle like a shield. A shape moved across the hallway. Just a flicker of motion, but it was enough to send him stumbling into his salt circle. He stayed there for hours, refusing to move until sunlight bled through the broken blinds. When he finally left, he found scorched footprints leading from the stairwell to the front door. Blackened, soot-like impressions burned into the old wood. He never went back. Account 2. The man in the mirror. Leah was a 19-year-old freshman living alone in a dorm room on campus in Michigan. Her roommate had gone home for the weekend, and Leah, deep into the world of online horror lore, decided to try the midnight game as a dare to herself. She followed the rules precisely. She was skeptical, but her heart raced during the setup. Candle, name on paper, blood, the knock, midnight. The first hour passed in eerie calm, just the whisper of wind outside and the candle's flickering light. But then, her phone screen glitched, just a quick pulse, like static. Then the lights flickered. Her candle died. She cursed, relighting it with a trembling hand, just barely within 10 seconds. But something was off. When she walked past the mirror over her desk, she stopped. She wasn't moving, but her reflection was. It stood still, with a smile on its face. Her face began to stretch, wide, wider. Then it blinked, slowly, deliberately. She turned away, turned back. It was still there. Her own image, standing motionless with that horrible grin, eyes too wide, staring too long. Then, without warning, the reflection leaned forward, pressing both palms against the glass from inside. Leah screamed. Her candle nearly fell. She covered the mirror with a towel, heart hammering like it was trying to escape her chest. The game continued, but she stayed in the corner of the room until 3:33 a.m., reciting prayers under her breath. She transferred dorms a week later. Her new room has no mirrors, and she still refuses to look into reflective surfaces in the dark. Account 3. He wasn't my friend anymore. They played together. Two best friends, Alex and Jaden, bored teens in a small town in Pennsylvania. They thought it would be funny, a late-night challenge, a story to brag about at school. But the midnight game doesn't care about jokes. At first, they stayed close, walking the house together. But as the night dragged on, they separated, each walking different floors to cover more ground, as Jaden said. That's when Alex's candle went out. He tried to relight it, but dropped the lighter. Crawling in the dark, he found it, but the seconds ticked by too fast. 10 seconds passed. No light. So he bolted into the kitchen and poured salt in a quick, trembling circle. He sat there breathing hard. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Jaden? Jay, he whispered. No reply. The footsteps stopped outside the circle. Then a voice. Hey, you okay? It sounded like Jaden, but wrong. The tone was flat. The rhythm strange. Like someone imitating him from memory. Jay? He repeated. No answer. Just breathing. Loud. Heavy. Too close. Alex closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and waited. When he opened them, nothing was there. When morning came, Jaden was gone. Police later found him in the woods behind the house, sitting in the dirt, staring blankly. He was breathing, but unresponsive. To this day, Jaden hasn't spoken a word, and Alex swears whatever came into that house that night, it took his best friend away. Let's take a step back and look at what the science says. Could the terrifying events reported by players of the Midnight Game have an explanation rooted in psychology or neuroscience? While believers swear by the supernatural, some experts suggest that something else may be at play, something very real, yet invisible: the human mind. The power of suggestion. One of the leading explanations is suggestibility. When a person believes they are in a dangerous or supernatural situation, their body begins to respond accordingly. Elevated heart rate, heightened sensitivity to sound, tunnel vision. When you're told that something is watching you, your mind fills in the blanks. In the Midnight Game, players are already primed to expect horror. You sit in total darkness, carrying a flickering flame, alone, in silence, for hours, after conducting a ritual that involves your name and your own blood. That setting alone can send the imagination into overdrive. Even the rules themselves reinforce paranoia. The moment your candle goes out, you're told you're in danger, that you must relight it or encircle yourself in salt, or else. That kind of stress puts the brain on red alert. Every creak of the floor, every shift in shadow becomes a potential threat. Some experts argue that the game acts as a kind of ritualized panic attack, a structured way to trigger deep fear and then endure it for over 3 hours. It becomes a psychological trial, and the longer it goes on, the more real the imagined threat becomes. The Ganzfeld effect and sensory deprivation. There's also the matter of sensory input, or rather the lack of it. In dark, quiet environments, the brain starts inventing stimuli. Known as the Ganzfeld effect, this phenomenon occurs when the senses are deprived of normal input. The brain, desperate for stimulation, begins to fill in the blanks with hallucinations, sounds, shadows, even voices. The candle becomes your only visual anchor. When it flickers or dies, the world around you becomes a canvas for fear. Your mind might create shapes in the shadows or phantom footsteps down the hall. You start to feel like you're being watched, not because you are, but because your brain has entered survival mode and is actively searching for danger. The witching hour and circadian vulnerability. Why does the game last until 3:33 a.m.? There's symbolism here, but also a scientific clue. Sleep researchers have long noted that the hours between 2 and 4 a.m. are when the human body is at its most vulnerable. Body temperature drops, cognitive alertness decreases, and your body enters its deepest sleep cycles. In folklore, this is the witching hour, but in science, it's when your mind is most susceptible to disorientation and fear. If you're awake and frightened during this time, especially in darkness, your body is out of sync with its natural rhythms. You're more likely to misinterpret sounds, feel disoriented, and experience hypnagogic hallucinations. Waking dreams that blur the line between reality and fantasy. Combine that with adrenaline and sleep deprivation, and suddenly, you're seeing things that aren't there. Dissociation, shadow people, and sleep paralysis. Some Midnight Game players report seeing tall, dark shapes moving through the room. Others feel watched, even touched. Psychologists link this to a mix of dissociation and hypnagogic hallucination, the same mechanisms behind sleep paralysis. When the brain is under intense stress or fear, it can dissociate, a protective response that detaches a person from reality. It's a survival mechanism. But in the right conditions, darkness, silence, and extreme anxiety, it can create full-blown experiences. Footsteps, voices, even humanoid figures. These experiences often mimic encounters with what people call shadow people. tall, vaguely human silhouettes, reported by sufferers of sleep paralysis or extreme sleep deprivation. The midnight game, intentionally or not, simulates the same conditions. It's no wonder these shapes begin to appear. But here's the catch. Even with all the psychological explanations, something about the midnight game feels different. The consistency in stories, the ritualistic rules, the deep primal fear that players describe. Not just unease, but a sense of being hunted. And the way that fear often lingers long after the game ends. Some say it's nothing more than collective delusion, a viral myth turned shared hallucination, but others believe the ritual opens something. Not because the rules are real, but because belief is real. And belief, when focused, can do strange things to the mind, and maybe even to the world around it. Now, let's talk about the deeper layers, the ones hidden in the symbols. Because if the midnight game is just a made-up ritual, why does it echo practices that are centuries old? The blood and the name, a ritual's oldest. Ingredients. Almost every ancient magical practice, from Sumerian incantations to European witchcraft, relies on two powerful ingredients: a person's name and their blood. The midnight game begins by writing your full name on a piece of paper, then pricking your finger and adding a drop of your own blood. In occult traditions, your name is not just an identifier, it's a spiritual signature. To write it down, combined with blood, is to bind your essence to the ritual. Blood, in nearly every belief system, is sacred. It's the life force. In sacrificial rites, it's an offering. In summoning rituals, it's the price of entry. When you press that blood-soaked paper to the door and knock 22 times, you're not just playing a game, you're opening a door, figuratively, or maybe literally. The number 22 and knock rituals in demonology. Why 22 knocks? Why not 20? Or 13? In numerology, 22 is known as a master builder number. It's a symbol of manifestation, the act of bringing ideas into physical form. In esoteric and occult belief systems, it's seen as a number that builds gateways, structures between worlds. And when that 20-second knock lands exactly at midnight, the threshold between one day and the next, you're not just knocking on wood, you're marking time and opening a gate. Ancient grimoires, books like The Key of Solomon or Lemgeton, detail knock-based summoning rites, where the number of knocks corresponds to the entity summoned or the strength of the opening. The midnight game follows this rhythm eerily well, almost as if someone reverse-engineered it from something older, more dangerous. The candle and the salt circle, spiritual protection or trap. Once the entity is invited in, your only line of defense is a candle, and if that fails, a circle of salt. In nearly all spiritual traditions, from hoodoo to Kabbalah, fire represents life force and spiritual light. A lit candle is a beacon, your only weapon against darkness. If it goes out, tradition says your spiritual protection is compromised. Salt, too, is deeply symbolic. In witchcraft and shamanic traditions, salt is a purifier, a barrier against spirits, demons, and curses. To encircle yourself in salt is to create a sacred space, one you hope evil cannot cross. But in darker traditions, both the flame and salt are used not just for protection, but containment. Some say the midnight game's salt circle doesn't shield you, it traps you, like a spirit caught in its own summoning circle. The entity itself, a folkloric archetype. So, what exactly is the entity you invite in? It has no official name, no known origin, but players describe similar sensations. A malevolent presence, a shadow that moves when it shouldn't, a growing sense of dread as the game continues. In folklore, this lines up with a category of beings known as night demons, or threshold spirits. In Slavic folklore, there's the Nochnadza, a night-dwelling spirit that enters homes when invited and feeds off fear. In Arabian legends, Ifrit spirits slip through cracks in the veil after rituals gone wrong. And in Native American lore, shadow people are entities that drift at the edge of human perception, drawn by broken taboos or disturbed rituals. The Midnight Game's entity feels like a patchwork of these myths, stitched together by modern fears, but rooted in something ancient. Something that waits on the other side of the threshold. A pagan trial reborn. Some occultists suggest the Midnight Game may be a twisted reinterpretation of midnight initiation rituals, once used by pagan cults or secret societies. In some druidic traditions, initiates were sent into the dark with a single flame, told to walk the forest and return before dawn, or be taken by the spirits of the wild. Fear was the test, darkness was the teacher, and those who failed were never the same. The Midnight Game, whether knowingly or not, recreates that very initiation, a test of courage, a trial of fear. But in this case, there's no mentor waiting on the other side. Just silence and a shadow that gets closer with every passing hour. So, what is it really? Is it an internet myth wrapped in spooky symbols? A psychological experiment that plays off old fears? Or a modern ritual that accidentally taps into ancient forces? Whatever it is, the structure is intentional. The use of blood, the timing, the rules, the defenses, they all echo beliefs that span centuries and continents, which raises the chilling question: if the ritual was truly just a hoax, why does it follow every rule of ancient summoning? We will now look at how the Midnight Game went from an obscure ritual to a viral legend. Because every urban myth has a spark, but the internet turned this one into a wildfire. The origins, creepypasta, and the spread. The earliest known written version of the Midnight Game surfaced on the now legendary creepypasta forums sometime around 2011. It wasn't framed as a story, but as instructions, a ritual guide, something you weren't supposed to just read, but try. No narrator, no disclaimer, just a chilling set of directions that dared you to test them at your own risk. It didn't take long before the Midnight Game gained traction on 4chan, Reddit's r/nosleep, and various horror forums. The simplicity of the ritual, pen, paper, blood, candle, made it accessible, but it was the tone of the instructions that truly hooked readers. It felt old, serious, like something that had been passed down, not made up. Within a year, people weren't just sharing the rules. They were uploading videos of themselves playing it. The rise of ritual videos. By 2013, YouTube had become the new campfire. Paranormal channels and teen vloggers alike were filming themselves attempting the Midnight Game. Search "playing the Midnight Game at 3 a.m. and you'll find thousands of videos, ranging from serious attempts to over-the-top dramatizations. Some claim supernatural activity. Candles go out inexplicably. Footsteps echo. Shadows move. Dogs bark. Batteries drain. Others treat it like a challenge, fueling the rise of 3 a.m. rituals, a subgenre of horror content that includes other urban legends like Bloody Mary, the elevator game, or the one-man hide-and-seek. The Midnight Game became a template for internet-age fear. Simple, accessible, dangerous, viral. Urban legend meets algorithm. The internet didn't just spread the legend, it evolved it. Different versions of the rules started popping up. Some added warnings. Never talk to the entity. Others introduced rewards. If you survive, you'll gain insight into the spirit world. Some even claimed it was a test by ancient cults watching from the shadows. TikTok brought the midnight game to Gen Z, with short clips showing people preparing the ritual, or whispering about what happened after. The comments are always the same. Don't try this. I did it and I'll never be the same. My friend played and hasn't been the same since. Whether real or not, the mass belief gives it power. Power to linger in your mind. Power to keep you up at night. The urban legend. Life cycle. Like any true modern myth, the midnight game follows a predictable pattern. 1. Anonymous origins. 2. Reinforced by storytelling and shared experiences. 3. Visual proof even if unverified. 4. Replicated, remixed, and ritualized. 5. Feared by some, mocked by others, but never completely forgotten. It has become part of the digital occult, a myth that feels more real because it lives where we live now, online. So what are we to make of the midnight game? A dare, a hoax, or an invitation to something that's always been waiting? Let's be honest. This isn't just another internet challenge. The midnight game carries a strange weight, something deeper than your average creepypasta. It's not flashy, it's not violent, it doesn't promise jump scares. What it offers is silence, darkness, and presence. And presence can be terrifying, because the true fear comes from not knowing whether you're alone in that dark hallway or not. Whether that breeze on your neck is from the window or someone breathing just behind you. The rules, the rituals, the warnings, they all feel too structured, too ancient, like echoes of something older than the internet ever was. It reads more like folklore disguised as a party game, a thinly veiled summoning wrapped in modern words. And maybe that's why it works. Because somehow we all understand the fear it's poking at. The fear of being watched. The fear of stepping into a room that suddenly feels wrong. The fear that something has followed you back, and it's still with you. Whether you believe in it or not, the game invites you to take that risk, to challenge something you don't understand, to let your candle go out and see what happens next. And that, dear viewers, is where we'll leave you tonight. But before you go, if you enjoyed this descent into ritual horror, make sure to subscribe. Hit that bell icon so the next time something knocks, you'll be the first to answer. And if you've ever played the midnight game or know someone who did, drop your story in the comments. Who knows? We might feature it in a future video. Until next time, sleep with the lights on. This has been Dr. Insomnia. And remember, not every game ends when you stop playing. Some keep going long after the candle dies.